I am ashamed and a bit embarrassed to admit that even though I graduated with an English major focus, or more specifically, general writing in a Bachelor's of Science degree, I have never read Paradise Lost. I've heard of it. I know it's considered a classic poetic work, and you think I would have read it by now, given poetry, is my favorite artistic form of written expression and composition, and yet I haven't. The promise of Amaranth, of course, being a highly talented metal group in the European foray. Many of you know how much I love that scene. If you've not entertained them with me yet, I've consulted about 7 of their works presently, this being now the 8th out of 10 I've currently lined up, with an open door for the future, because I know a new album's in the works as we speak. Maybe it's soon to be unveiled, I don't know exactly, but even more than that, just with the Amaranth regard, the European rock and metal regard, conceptual songs I love. Anything of a wider depth, whether it be in storytelling in a more imagined sense, or in this case, a historical of sorts in the writing space adaptation. Given that Paradise Lost is a very strong poetic work, and I can say that as well, seeing it from a number of dimensions, not just on writing aspects and intention, but even in the biblical connection, right? That's where it has its foundation, in that, yes, it is very much a story that takes certain liberties, but it is an interesting encapsulation of the biblical story told with a compelling narrative as introduced by John Milton. Again, and I love historical experiences, so anything in terms of music and invigorating that past perspective. Let's dig back into, let me get the century mark right here, 17th century. In the 1600s, yes, I love historical stuff, especially when I'm underexposed. I love the educational experience that music can sometimes provide. It depends on the work. It depends on, maybe your emergence of familiarity. And again, I am embarrassed to admit that I've not read Paradise Lost yet, but I have taken, again, some time with the story, at least in a synopsis form, to get a general understanding from what I'm going to be watching in terms of Amaranth's transformation in I would imagine, probably just as creative exploration as the original piece. Different respects, maybe, perhaps, it's much more modern. And I understand this piece is going to be tapping into that, again, extensively, with the promise. I was reading on this to get, again, a good concept for where the song was going, at least originally. How do they say this? It's from, I think, the Stargaze magazine. I found the declaration. It is from the perspective from this perspective of Paradise Lost, that we tell a brief yet momentous story of greed, betrayal, and overblown pride. If you can't tell, I'm providing the quote. Of course, I pulled that up for you as well. And all too familiar, verbatim, familiar contemporary theme. I love that. Love that parallel association. Amaranth's first collaboration of Poland's visual grandmasters, Group of 13, I've heard that name, took us to from abandoned and ghastly factory halls in Wrocław to the derelict ruins of Swinny Castle, among the Polish mountains. Oh, this is going to be fun to watch. Light up your incense, fill your goblet, and delight in a darker shade of Amaranth. We've already entertained really good works right now, so again, this new vision, I'm curious, especially with such geographical promise. Let's take a look and see what this is going to look like. And the Group of 13, I don't know where I've seen that name before. Maybe in regards to Amaranth, perhaps? I know it's popped up. Fresh introductions on a number of respects, and yet a familiar quality on behalf of Amaranth. And I hope if you're somebody that's not, as I always say with my content, especially in the music space, I hope there's a variety of perspective and approach. I would imagine a number of you approaching this, again, being longtime Amaranth fans, you've probably heard this song before me, right? It's been out for, as I understand, a little while, a couple years, in fact. So I'm definitely far behind, but better late than never. I'm sure, though, there are probably a couple of you who are approaching on a first-name basis. That's been the case in some other groups I've consulted in the past, and maybe Amaranth has been one where, given their name circulation, you might have heard of them before, maybe you've not entertained their works. Maybe Archangel will be the start for you. Certainly you've heard some very compelling pieces to advance this one. Let's engage where Archangel has to go as a story. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video that corresponds, and we can get a perspective for the scenic promise, at least it's envisioned by that one bio. And I will also have the story featured on part of the lyrics if you want to read along with that. Those will be provided in the video feed, and as soon as we get in the song, and whenever those pop up and arrive, those should launch. Anyway, Archangel. Let's hear it. Let's get a perspective of Amaranth's take on Paradise Lost. And I'm sure, again, a synopsis does not do justice to the story, admittedly, but I wanted to continue coverage on Amaranth, and sometimes you make exceptions with the intention to read later when you have time. Which is something apparently I never have. Anywho, here we go. all too quiet. Here we go. Mythic background. I love that. Oh man, they're going for it. And the ruins are a great set piece. I love the lower pitch on part of Enrique. Oh man, vocal presence here. Creatively, this is my favorite thus far. Man, I love that rhythm. And there's the switch. It was Nils first, here goes Elise. Oh, it's lovely to hear all three blend together. And this piece mandates that. What fantastic application! I love the haunting tone. We've got a mythic edge to start. This is far more foreboding. I love the electronic integration here. Oh, man. They get such a strong finish on that. My word. Talk about a band that goes for it. Oh, my word. Wow. That is incredibly showy. I would say that's the hardest yet from Amaranth. That is impressive on scale. You know, I love bands that experiment around, especially with a historical idea, and try their hand at it. This is one of the most sufficient on delivery. You know what I'd love to see? Because I was reading this in Scope. I don't know if they'll do this. Maybe they've already done it. I'm not aware of it. But I don't think it's necessarily been touched on. Maybe in the other pieces I've got lined up for consultations. Feel free to clarify down below if I'm wrong. But I was reading again in conjunction to the synopsis that there's two aspects to this, whether it be the fall of the devil in creation or the influence of Adam and Eve. I'd love to see two different videos done in stages, right? This is the first. I'd love to see a part two eventually. I think that'd be quite creative. Especially given how tight this video is. On scenery, yes, it's beautiful. I love Europe. I've never been to Europe. I would love to go. Just to visit. Like, if I could get, like, a tour experience of half of these European groups that I've humored on the channel, where their videos are all so beautiful. I don't know, like, let me bring up a couple names. Blackbriar, D'Artagnan, just a couple of these environments people visit, or Ad Infinitum as well, Dark Side of the Moon. every one of these videos just takes us to such interesting environments where you're like, I want to go. I just want to stand there and look at wherever this place is. The Sweeney Castle in the Polish mountains, just beautiful. Even though, again, it's not in daylight, right? It's got fire and pyrotechnics. Really set the mood. Certainly, for sure. But, oh man, it's fun. I get, like, Afterlife ad infinitum vibes. As some of you will know, when it comes to Niels Johan Malin, that was my point of entry of him, and that's kind of what set me on the path of Amaranth, at least in consideration of humoring them. Though I already knew about them, that's when it really kicked off. Like, I gotta hear more of them, because it didn't even hit me at the time when I first engaged with them, a while back, that Niels didn't even cross my mind until it was ad infinitum. I don't say that to be mean. I said that because I was in a much different space than I am now, especially since I hadn't brought music onto the channel at that point yet, in terms of fulfilling my ambition, which has been a long time thing, and I'm so glad I did. For works of art as high caliber and unorthodox to my, I would say, social circles familiarity as that, I am well aware. And again, I've said, I try and come at my content with as much as I can afford, humble lens, right? I don't say this to be haughty. I always consider, when I look at, art in the music space, my social circle, my present social circle, and there just isn't much connection in the music regard. With you, yes, I love that I'm able to find a space, specifically a part of, and there's so many sub-goals that have popped up in regards to bringing music on. It's just been wonderful to entertain this type of art form. It's been so cool to have points of connection formed with others that remind me, I'm not alone in the world in regards to loving metal, especially such high caliber, excellent art as the European scene generally offers. And as I always say, it is my hope that some of you are approaching a fresh introduction basis, so that said talent compels you in interest, and that you have a fun experience perhaps with me, again, entertaining the work for the first time. We're approaching a piece of art in the same vein. I know it's, again, a bit of a different approach to take, but I admire providing that if I can. I truly want these videos to not just be about, hey, here's me cataloging my experiences. As far as I'm concerned in intention, these are as much for me as they should be for you. That's my intention. And hope that I'm paving routes for you to find names that you will long revere on their strengths. And Amaranth has offered so much. But again, I always look to my social circles, fall back on my original point, and I'm like, why is it that none of you have happened upon these groups yet? I try to influence perhaps perception to deter the ways and paths that I've gone in life, but no, not present luck yet. I hope for one day, though. Just with Strafe in Europe, man, I love it. This piece, in every respect, on storytelling, lyrically, it definitely matches in a very interesting articulation. It's, as I said, a very expressive video. Speaking broadly of the costumes and the attire, every aspect to this video, maybe it's a good way to centralize focus on it. This song goes for it. On creativity, on energy, yes, it's darker. I love the force on this piece. It's just so freaking hard. This is what I love in metal, and it just so sufficiently delivers. But the vocal balancing, as I've also said in the past with Amaranth, if you're not familiar, at least in my experiences, the Enrique, their former screamer or unclean vocalist, technically, he's been for the most part as like an isolated echo from the tracks I'm familiarized to, in comparison to Nils and Yeliz, who overlap much more frequently and are always a delight to hear, whether it be in that overlap or on individual expression. So to hear all three be blended was wonderful. I'm like, how do they sound together? And it just works. I forget what line it was in the song. It was somewhere in the chorus. Probably, I think maybe the Archangel has fallen down. It's just hearing that, it's like, again, I wondered how it would sound, and the song just offers so much on delivery. The tones as well. The mythic entry, setting that ancient mood that would definitely fit the poetry of the piece and as well as the biblical inspiration, followed by electronic emphasis, or electronic metal emphasis and keyboard effects, put in a particular key to give it a haunting flair. Just the invention of this piece and the vision of it, I find great. It's tight, it's fun, it's invigorating. It is a emphatic beast of a song. One of their best, I think a signature piece in my opinion on creativity and imagination. If you can't tell, I'm still wrapping my thoughts around it. So none of these pieces, I guess, requires more time to process. I imagine for some of you that would be the same response. I don't like to speak for anybody, so feel free to clarify down below if maybe I'm right on the ball on that, for your own declaration. And perhaps your overall opinion on the piece and what angle you come from. Maybe we should disclose that. Because again, I'd love to hear the hopeful, in my part, variety of perspective. Long-time listener, fresh listener, I welcome everybody. I'd love to hear what point of approach you take down below. As I said, I find Archangel, in connection to the pieces I've heard thus far from Amaranth, one of the strongest, if not the strongest. And I've liked, as I've said in this channel generally, there is not a song I've covered that I have not liked. And of Amaranth, it's been certainly true. And Archangel is creatively and on delivery and imagination one of their most triumphant. I'm still just, I'm astounded by the personality of that piece. It has so much to consider in positive regard. Maybe I'm not even doing it justice and giving a general summation. Maybe you have to specify each work. Maybe it's not necessarily the most appropriate for maybe an initial first take because it mandates said delving. And I certainly will be on subsequent listens, but if I can say anything right now, just again on a first inclination, and give aspects of such regard the honor they justly deserve. The vocal balancing, the associations, the inflection points. And on Nils, I heard that introduction on the verse too, and it was wonderful. I loved it. The expression of the piece, the rage, the energy, the electronic use, the tones, everything here works into making this marvel of a number. I'm still just taken aback by it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.